Hi, I'm Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. Thanking you for checking out this Parents and Caregiver series brought to you by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative. Let's talk about another real world event that happens all the time. We're at the pharmacy. This kind of rubs me the wrong way sometimes. I'm at the pharmacy, and sometimes if the waiting room there is pretty full, the pharmacist will ask for some identifying information in a very public setting. And
Yeah,
based on
right.
what we've talked about, I'm curious, is that some might think of that as a HIPAA violation, is it?
Yeah, right. So sensitive topic, right? Because it's my personal information. And I sometimes there are things that we want to be kept private. Going back to the conversation we had earlier about 1996, I'm gonna go ahead and leave my age right there, how old I was, right? So technically, if you look at HIPAA, the way it's structured and the way it reads, once again, this isn't legal advice. This is just interpretation, reading the way it's written. HIPAA applies to healthcare providers and sharing of information. So someone says, hey, Michael Coleman, your so-and-so medication's ready. Come pick it up, right? And that's kind of like, all right, that can be a little problematic. However, when you come to the counter and they're like, oh, are you Michael Coleman? Verify your birthday. Are they sharing that information? Are they sharing that birthday with anybody else? That's basically just an identifier. So when I made that shout out and I said, hey, your so-and-so medication ready, that's kind of poor example. But usually like when you're in a doctor's office and they call you, hey, serving Carlos Martinez, your turn to come into the room. They don't sit here and say, Carlos Martinez, you're here for your checkup on whatever issues you're dealing with. Basically boils down to sharing of information versus using information for identifying who that person is.
You're reminding me, Dr. Carlos. I was in the pharmacy once a few years ago, and I really felt I didn't know much, if anything, about HIPAA really at that time. And I was in a pharmacy, and the I'm not sure it's the pharmacist or the clerk or whoever was working the window. She said to this guy, she made reference to ED medication, erectile dysfunction
Mm-hmm.
medication, and if you watch TV, you knew
Yeah.
what
Oh
it
yeah.
was, and I really felt for that guy. I'm like, that's really kind of personal, and the way she just kind of
Right.
threw it out. So I don't, based on what you said, it wasn't HIPAA, but it was bad form, as you put it. It
No,
was,
definitely customer service, right? I think that's what it
yeah,
boils down to is customer service,
yeah.
and it doesn't make me feel good.
Let's talk about something else, Dr. Carlos. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
text messages. They are, as you
Yeah,
know, quite ubiquitous today, especially with younger generations. Are text messages HIPAA compliant?
depends. That's not a straightforward answer. So as
Mm.
far as text messages in and of itself, and the biggest thing with information is losing information and sharing information, right? Like we've been talking about. So when it comes to healthcare providers, so for example, I work for hearyou.org. Hearyou.org has policies on sending text messages. I can't send a text message from my personal phone. I have to use the phone number that was provided to me. And when I send a text message, before I send the actual message, I have to put disclaimers, type my message at the bottom, more information, such as the suicide hotline, right? My general rule of thumb is I only keep text messages for scheduling purposes. And when I do it, it's very vague. Hey, this is Carlos. We have an appointment. Just a reminder. Let me know if you can't show up. That could be anything, right? I could be Carlos, the used car salesman, or I can be, Carlos, the barber.
Right.
So I'm not giving any identified information to the person just in case I get the wrong number. I'm not giving any information regarding what the session is, or I'm not calling it psychotherapy or anything like that. So, gray area, Different agencies will have different protocols. General practice is to keep things as vague as possible, but to still convey the message to the consumer services. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense, and those are some great tips. So I even like the way you said this is Carlos, so not Dr. Martinez.
Yeah,
So there's
right.
nothing there
Seriously.
to tip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Really appreciate you hearing that rather. This might be a great time to talk about the need to have consent forms completed. This is part of our parents and caregiver series. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the parent and caregiver, and they're managing health concerns of either their own children or the children that are in their care. And let's talk about the need to have them completed and signed before the emergency happens, right?
Yeah.
If it's mental health related or otherwise. Can you talk to us a little bit about consent forms? And specific questions are kind of, where do we get the forms? How easy are they to fill
Sure.
out?
Mhm.
With whom do we need to file them? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So consent forms, they can either be given to you by the healthcare provider, right? So like I have my own health consent forms that I have, and it has the Hear You branding on it. But it's great to be proactive as well too. If you know that a mental health crisis can happen, will happen, or has happened in the past, you can find them on that NAMI website that I mentioned earlier, nami.org. There's a mental health crisis guidebook there. I think it's about 30 pages, what to do, who to talk to, checklists, things like that. But the last one it's a basically a plan, and there's consent forms on there. And filled out when your loved one is cognizant and aware. You don't want to do it when they're in the middle of a medical or mental health crisis, because then that can avoid a lot of stuff. And the information is fairly straightforward. There's name of the person who holds the right of the information. Then there's the name of the person who that they can share it to. There may be a list of some providers there if there's already providers in place, or it can be blanket. And put a date and time. How long is this consent good for? Is it yearly? Is it indefinite? Things like that. 'Cause those are all things that lawyers, if it ever goes to a civil lawsuit, will look at.
And just to be clear, when we're talking about consent forms, those are for people who are in your care who are already 18 or older. If a minor child is in my care, if my own kid has some mental health issues, I don't have to worry about consent forms with them, or no, maybe I do.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends on the age,
Well,
right? If they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, generally not, right? I'm going to use that word generally because there's always an exception to everything that we don't think of. And so I work with kids. I've had kids as young as 10, and I work with kids who are 15, 16. Generally, those kids who are closer to the age of 18, the age of consent, uh, they technically don't need their parents' consent. They don't need to have consent forms signed by their parents to see me as a therapist. So that's where law ethics, HIPAA can get a little funky to navigate. A lot of gray area.
got it, got it, got it, got it. Let's talk now about HIPAA violations. That's what we hear about most in the
Yeah,
media. What is the most common HIPAA violation?
yeah. So I've got a work. I got a work laptop, work iPhone, iPad, and I've got a personal here. And so the most common one is losing information. So I keep everything separate. I don't keep my business stuff, especially client information, on my personal phone. What happens if I lose it? And it's happened. It's been known to happen from time to time. So the most common thing with data breaches. I'm sorry. The most common thing with HIPAA violations are data breaches, leaking of data, and that generally comes from losing electronics that have it, laptops, tablets, phones, things like that. And then you have the hacking, which is becoming ever more popular now.
You just kind of have prompted me. I've been on the fence for a while now, Dr. Carlos, about right now I've got one phone, one iPhone, and it's got everything on it. And
Yeah.
that goes back for me 15, 20 years. I don't know that
Yeah.
that's the best idea. Maybe I should separate things
Yeah.
out, especially with my work here at Brother Be Well and Mental Health California. That might be, I'm going to look into that based on just what
Yeah.
you told me. I really appreciate that.
It's
What
a
can you
pain,
walk?
it's always good practice.
It's great practice, and it also would help with that work-life separation that you've talked to us about on other conversations. If I had a work-only phone with all of that sensitive health-related data, at the end of the day, I turn that puppy off, leave it on my desk, walk out, and I'm done. So I'm going to look into that over the weekend. Thanks for that advice. Can you tell us what some of the other HIPAA violations are?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, employee training, right? People just don't know. And you can't fault them because a company may just have inadequate training. But and unfortunately, when these data issues happen, it costs big money, but it's just a learning point for the employees. Employee gossiping, yeah, I'm guilty. I love a good story, right? But the employee gossiping in the hallway, people hear it. They post now with social media, putting things on there. I don't know if you've heard of this basketball player, God rest his soul, but his name was Kobe Bryant. Sounds familiar? Law enforcement took a photo, they put it on social media, and now there's the Kobe Bryant law where first responders, regardless of who they think may be there, they're not able to sit here and give information, post stuff on there. That all has to do with Kobe Bryant and HIPAA. And just safe disposables, disposing safely of information. Documents, old laptops, old computers, things like that. Make sure it's all disposed of properly so that the information is safeguarded and destroyed properly.
And that last one is so critical because for some of us, we're done with the laptop and we just kind of throw it in a corner somewhere and forget about it, right? If it's not working, you don't think about it, but you got to purge that thing, reset all those settings, get rid of all that information before you recycle it. Yep, great advice too. We're just about out of time, Dr. Carlos. I can't believe how quickly time flies by. And as you know, I almost never let you get away without giving you a second to kind of give us your final thoughts about this.
I hear you.
So
I hear
take
you.
it. Tell us what we need to know. What's the number one or two takeaways from this conversation or top of mind things that we got to know about HIPAA?
Yeah, so when it comes to parent and caregivers and with HIPAA, right? HIPAA generally is going to play a role if you're long-term caregiving for somebody who has a chronic mental health or medical issue. First and foremost, my heart goes out to you. I've walked in those shoes. I'm walking in those shoes, so I understand that. And I understand how complicated the law is and HIPAA can be when you're dealing with a family member who's in crisis, and essentially you're going to be in crisis too because you don't know what the heck's going on and who can help you. So I like to use that phrase, it takes a village. And if you're not sure what that means, basically build the support system. It takes a village to raise a kid. It takes a village to help you with your own stuff that you have going on. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Find a support group. Once again, plug to NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. They have people who have been there before. They have people on call. They have lawyers. They have already made templates. They have people who can walk that journey with you to help you because we can't do this alone. If you're in California, hearyou.org, we're here available for you. Send us an email, send us a phone call, and we'll help you with that one-on-one therapy as well.
Really appreciate all your time, care, and attention. Dr. Carlos Martinez, Associate Marriage and Family Therapist with hearyou.org. Thank you, sir. It's always great to see you and already looking forward to next time.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. And I want to thank you for watching this video. It's a part of our parent and caregiver series made possible by Blue Shield of California, and specifically their Blue Sky initiative. You can read all about that initiative at bluesky.blueshieldca.com. bluesky.blueshieldca.com. We're very thankful to them. Thankful to hearyou.org as well, and counselors like Dr. Carlos Martinez. And I'll tell you about another website really quickly, ours, brotherbewell.com. If you like this video, got something out of that, we've got a series of videos, not just as a part of this particular Parents and Caregiver series, but on any one of a number of behavioral health topics, videos, audio podcasts, print pieces, links to resources, all designed to help you and other boys and men of color be well. So check it all out at brotherbewell.com. We're a membership-supported service, and guess what? Memberships are free. So sign up right now. You'll be our newest member. While you're there, sign up for our blog. Just give us your email address, and 2 or 3 times a week, you'll get notifications about videos like this when they go live. So take care of all that, if you would, at brotherbewell.com. My name, Michael P. Coleman. I'm content director for Brother Be Well. It's been a great pleasure to be here with you today. I appreciate you taking time out to check out this video or listen to this podcast. And I want to ask you to do 2 things for me, if you would. Take great care of yourself, and we're trying to help you do that. When you get it down, grab somebody's hand and take great care of them too. Until next time, bye-bye.